Assalamu alaikum and welcome to a new video where we are going to start with the الجلي Diwani Jali script. And for the Diwani Jali you might want to go back to the Ruqa script to start learning some basics in calligraphy. I will put an ad that will come on the right here, so go back and watch those videos before you start with this one if you were new to Arabic calligraphy. If you have some practice with it, then let's start with how are we going to hold the pen for this script. Now, Diwani Jali is the Diwani that has more into it than the normal Diwani. For the Alef, we will start with this angle. So if you were to hold the pen, you would hold it in a way that is slightly perpendicular, as you can see. You can sort of pause the video and try and see if this was perpendicular, how much I need to go to the right. Okay, so we're going to start with this angle. The second thing we are going to see is the angle of the dots, which is again this one, almost 45. It's more than 45, but yeah, this is the angle. And the dots are square in this script. They are not rectangular, they are not thin, they are not wide, they are square shaped. We're going to use these for the scale, that's why we are talking about them. The third note we are going to talk about before we start with the Alef is the movement. So you need to be smooth. So you sometimes have to move with your arm, not with your hand. Because when you move the pen with your hand, you end up with a limited space, and this will have to stop. Then you have to move your hand, then you have to continue, then move your hand, then continue. And my hand is big, so I don't find it hard to write this with one move. But again, it's best to do it with your arm. And what I mean by arm, so this is your hand, this is your elbow, and this is your shoulder. So when you move, you keep this part fixed and you move this joint, as you can see here. So when you write, if this was your arm and you wanted to write an Alef or something, this joint would move downward to this place. So the displacement of your hand would be really controlled and you wouldn't have any troubles with the straight lines and those things. This is an important thing to learn, which is to lift your hand off the paper while writing. Now let's start with the letter Alef. As usual, we've got a scale to attain to. We're going to start with 5 points of height. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And we are going to have a perpendicular imaginary line on the right. From this imaginary line we are going to take half a point, which is this one. And this is where the Alef will start and go back. So the Alef is inclined with a half a point degree, just like this. Now the Alef isn't straight, the Alef has two curves. The first one going like this, then the second one that goes back. So it's like having two balls next to each other and you are maneuvering between them, just like this. If it wasn't your first time in calligraphy, you will figure this one out. So as we said, this is the angle we are working with. So we start next to this half a point, we go down and we make our curve. Touch the line back here, then stop down here. Again, we start here, we go down with a nice curve, then start curve back, and we stop here. As we can see, it's really neat and nice, and that's what we need for the first part of the Alef. Now the second part of the Alef will be, now if you took the line here, the imaginary line, it will be the same thing, half a point, because you took half a point from the top. It will be half a point from the lower edge down here. The second part of the alif would be 4 points going downward, just like this. So you stopped here, you continue, you go down, you rotate the pen, and you end up with this nice shape, as we can see. Now there's a note about this part. So when you finish with the first move, the second move will come with it. So I'm going to color the second move, which is this one. You will see that they are wrapped around each other. So the outer edge is smooth. The inner edge might have an angle, but the outer edge is smooth. So you need to be careful when you finish with the first move that the second move will be included in, as we can see here. Outside is smooth curve, inside you could have a sharp edge. I hope it's clear. So this is the first and the second part. It is finished, but we have a hilya, a decoration for the alif. So let's do it again without the scale. We're going down with a nice curve to the right, and then a nice curve to the left. Then we continue with the second move. We rotate the pen and we finish it. Now the rotation of the pen down here, it is basically rotating it around your middle finger. If you were holding the pen this way, some people hold the pen this way, so you rotate the pen like this in your hand while writing. What this does is that it lifts up the pen off the paper. So if it was like this, if you rotated the pen, it will start lifting up the pen off the paper, and you start with these reduced amount of cuts. And while writing, this will lead into the ink following the lift up, and this way you get the smooth roundation. Now if it was very hard for you to do this move, what you do is you basically stop, then you would do a continuation of these lines this way, then you would color this with the same ink. So we've done the alif. In this script we also have another note, which is we need 2 pens, one that is this thick and the other one is the thickness. So here I've got this pen and I've got the other pen, which is this one, that is the third of the thickness of this pen. And this one we use to do the decorations and the small heads in this script. So after doing the alif, you have a shape here that has to be done. Now this shape have like several types of it. So you've got one that looks like this, where you go down, this is one, then you go back up with a circle that it's touching the alif from here, from this side. Then you would go back with this nice 2 curves move. Finally you would do the same move as the alif, which is the end of the alif, this part. So you've got 1, 2, 3 and 4. This is one look of it. There are other looks of it where one is having a closed circle, then you go up and you see here it's rounded. This shape is not rounded. You go up, then you go back. It is more of a sharp edge up here, and you continue this with the same moves. So we're talking about this part of the shape. Other types, you will see them changing this shape, so it will stop here, then they will add another one that will close in, and these are just the decorations. What you should note about this is, for example, when you do the first move, this one, the big one, the second move, the last move would be this shape would go in, then out. So you can see that this decoration is merged into the alif so that it will stick to it. The same thing goes for the next one, which is going in to give it strength, basically. Then coming out, just like this. So this is the alif, 3 moves, 1, 2, and finally the decoration. The decorations, you have several shapes of them, you are free to choose any of them. Now, we are going to look into the connected alif later, but let's move on to the ba, so that we could connect the alif to something. Again, with the ba, we start with a scale. We are going to use 7 points of vertical scale. We are going to use 6 points. Sorry about that. Going to use 6 points. And starting from the top part up here, we are going to do one curve that will smoothly merge into the other one. Finally, it will finish with a circle. So 1, and this is a 2, but it's a transition 2, 3. So 1 is going up, then coming back. Now, all the way here, we are curving this way, as you can see. Now, this line down here is where we are going to hit to then come back. So it is a big letter. So we stop down here, let's continue. And the way we hold the pen is slightly vertical. It's more vertical than the alif, which was this one. And the ba, we hold it slightly more vertical. So we keep going down until we reach this point, and we start curving the other way around, as we can see here. Then we do the last move, which is curving back. Now, the size of the ba is variable, so some people make it 5, but take it as 7 for now. 3, and here we have 7. Take it as 7 for now, so that it will be easier for you to go smaller or bigger than this. So 7 points of height. Here you've got a curve, here you've got another curve, and the transition between the two curves is this move. And this is something important because some people would curve, then suddenly curve back. They miss the mid part, and this will give you an ugly shape. What you need is a smooth transition between this upper curve by going straight for a bit, then starting the second curve, which would be down here. Then I stop here because after this you have 2 options. You could either close it this way, or you could go back and do this move. It's up to you. So again with this, you've got 6 points of height, and the width, as we said, between 5 and 7. 3 and 3, 7. So this is the ba by itself. Now the dot for the ba would come down here. If it was a ta or a tha, you're gonna put it up here. Now in this script, although it's Diwani, we use the separated points, because in the normal Diwani we have these points for 2 and 3, but in the Diwani Jali we go back to the separated ones. So this is for the ba, and that's the alif. Let's move on into some connections. With regards to the ba, and we're going to talk about the ba because first, we're going to talk about the ba first because we have to connect it to an alif. So the ba at the start, we're going to use the first move of the ba that we just saw, which was this one. But we don't go down all the way. No, we just stop and we curve up. And here we have a ba and alif. Now, what happened here is that I moved downward, then I started to go up. When I went up, you will see that the alif isn't straight. It has some curvature in it. So you go up, then you curve slightly to the left, but not too much. It's a really slight curve. It's not unnoticeable, but it adds a nice touch to the alif. Finally, here you could go down with a straight cut, so that will give you this beautiful decoration. So this is a ba by, it's connected to an alif, or a ta or a tha, and you basically go up and down, just like this move up here, the beginning of it. Now, if you had more than one connected to each other, so for example, Beth. For this one, you would do the same thing, go up and down, then up, then down. And what we have here is a bar connected to the same bar we saw up here. But since it's connected, it helps that the bar goes up because the connection comes from down here. And here you could have Beth, which means broadcast. This with regards to the 2 or 1. Now when you have 3 and more, things start to change a bit. So the scene, the reason for this is that the scene looks like this, or looks like this. So whenever we have 3 nabirat, or 3 letters next to each other, we want to distinguish them from a scene. And that's where the thinking starts. So if we want to write tathbeet, we start with the same bar we just made, and we go up high. Now this thing helps us to break and start with a new shape, basically. So tathbeet is a long word with a lot of letters. So ta, tha, ba, ya, ta, ta, tha, ba, ya, ta. So these are a lot of letters next to each other, and if we wrote them all the same shape, we will end up with a scene. So you start with the one low, the second one goes high, third and fourth, you are free to do whatever you want to do with them. You could make both of them low because the fifth one would go high because it's a ta. With the dots, you are free to put them up here. Tathbeet. What you want are these shapes: number 1, number 2, number 3, which is the same as this one. These are new shapes you use when you have more than one. Now, if you had, there's another shape that is important for you to see. For example, if you want to write layth, which means lion in Arabic, it's also a boy's name. So you start with a lam, which is the same as an alif, and here you go back and you stop here. This is a ya. Then you would come back and you would do the tha, and you would add the decoration up here. Now this is a new shape, that's why I have to include it, because with time you will see that you need all these shapes depending on the words that you are writing. So if you were to write lathe, this would be the best shape for you, and the way to do it is basically to go back, and here you have a small curve right up here. So you go back, and when you come to the next connection, you do a slight curve upward, then you do the back. You've got a crest curve, then a sag curve. This way you get this really nice shape. And with more practice, you will find more of these things. So we've got the tathbeet, we've got beth, we've got layth, which you could, the lam we will come to later, but this is a good practice for you. We could also write ithbat to prove something. So here we're going to start with the alif, down, curve right, curve left, and we do the second move and we curve the pen. This is the way to do it all together. I'm going to leave the top decoration for later. Alif, tha, ba, alif, ta, ithbat. Here I'm going to use this shape for the tha, and I'm going to use this shape that we saw right here for the ba. Now all what I have to do is go down and up for an alif, curve it slightly to the left and do a nice drop back here. Ithbat, so I've got tha, which I should have put after I made the decoration, because now we've got a really small space up here. And the ta I could bring from here for an intersection. curve it and back. Now you could stop at the end here and take your time to make the last move. And you could have the dots in here or out. Just going to put them here. And here you have the word about. By the way, this script has a lot of decorations in it that we will talk about later, but for now you have to learn the letters first. This is going to be really tricky, but let's do this shape. And finally going out just like this. The Hamza we will come to later, but for now just do these words. So this is for today's lesson. I hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't watched the Ruqa, go back and watch it. If you have, then feel free to start practicing it. You've got these letters, take your time doing them. You need 2 pens because it's the easiest. You could use this one for the third of it, but you need to practice the way on how to hold the pen in order to give you full or half or third or fourth. Like, you need to practice how to hold it, which is basically how much of it is sticking to the paper. We talked about it in other lessons. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Like, share and subscribe to the channel, and see you in the next one. This has been Amar Awadi, and have a lovely day. Goodbye.